My husband is known as the Buddha-like gentleman in the Beijing social circle. We had been secretly married for 3 years. During that time, he was cold and distant towards me, never showing any concern. It wasn't until the video of him passionately kissing his first love in the car was exposed that I realized he also had a side where his emotions got out of control. Just not towards me. Later, his first love came to my door to provoke me. During this scuffle, I fell down the stairs, went into premature labor, and had massive bleeding. That night, there were rumors in the social circle that the Buddha-like gentleman stepped down from his pedestal, stood in the boundless wind and snow, and kowtowed step by step to get a peace talisman for me. However, I presented him with a divorce judgment, blood seeped from his temple, and his voice trembled. "Don't divorce me. The child needs a father." I slowly pulled my hand out of his palm. "No need. I can raise the child without the father." 10 minutes before the video of Zachary and Chloe kissing passionately in the car was exposed, I was holding a press conference, announcing that I would take a temporary break from acting. I had just won the Best Actress award last month, and my sudden decision to step back at this time caused an uproar. Countless microphones were thrust in front of me. "Miss Fiona, would you mind telling us the reason for your retirement from the entertainment circle? Previously, paparazzi photographed you at the obstetrics department. Is the news of your pregnancy true? Who is the father of the child?" I raised my face, smiled at the camera, and placed my hand on my slightly protruding belly, about to answer one by one. Suddenly, I heard someone gasp. "Look at the hot search. Chloe's relationship has been exposed." My eyelids twitched slightly. There was chaos and noise all around. The interview was interrupted, and my agent Judy pulled me to the backstage and handed me her phone. The hot search was a video that lasted only a few seconds. On a rainy night, the window of the Maybach was half open. Chloe was wearing a light blue-green cheongsam, softly snuggling in the man's arms and taking the initiative to offer her red lips. A hand with round Buddhist beads wrapped around its wrist affectionately held her slender waist. The atmosphere was both affectionate and charming. Hashtag the fairy in cheongsam and the Buddha-like gentleman kissing passionately in the car. Hashtag Chloe and Zachary are so sweet. Hashtag. These hot search tags overshadowed the news of my retirement from the circle and rushed into the top 3 of the entertainment list. Agent Judy, with an ugly look on her face, cursed, "This Chloe, it's not enough that she snatched your endorsements and resources. Now she's even stealing your popularity." She lit a cigarette and in her fury, she said whatever came to her mind. "Fiona, isn't your husband also a noble young master in the Beijing social circle? Let him come forward and warn Chloe." I don't believe she'd still dare to be so arrogant. I lowered my head and remained silent. It wasn't until the screen of my phone automatically went off, reflecting a pale face, that I managed to squeeze out a sentence from my throat with difficulty. "My husband is Zachary." With a click, the cigarette between Judy's fingertips dropped to the ground. Few people in the circle knew that I was Zachary's wife. The Zachary family believed that I had shamelessly seduced Zachary on my own initiative, so they blocked the news of our marriage from the outside world. But that wasn't the case. 3 years ago, I was invited to an event. After it ended, an investor came over to offer me a toast. Without any precautions, I drank a glass of champagne that had been laced with an aphrodisiac. When I was being taken to the hotel, I pinched my palm hard and used all my strength to break free from the investor's restraints. I stumbled and pushed open the half-closed door next to me. "Help, help me." I curled up in the corner, and a few soft moans escaped from my lips. The man who walked out of the bathroom was drunk and looked me up and down a few times. Then, he suddenly pulled me into his arms. "You're finally back?" His hot breath brushed past my ear. Before I could say anything, his kiss fell. The next day, when it was bright outside, I saw the man's face clearly. It was Zachary. Zachary, the heir to the Zachary family group, who was known as the Buddha-like gentleman in the Beijing social circle, was by nature cold and aloof, and famous for his self-restraint and propriety. But last night, he had gone crazy. I picked up my scattered clothes and fled as if running away. I thought it was just a one-night stand and that we would never cross paths again. Who would have thought that in the afternoon, Zachary showed up at my door and said right away, "Miss Fiona, I'm sorry. I drank too much last night." He asked for my bank card number and transferred 5 million yuan into it. "I can take responsibility for you. This is the betrothal gift for marrying you." On the day we got the marriage certificate, I asked him why he decided to get married. He said that the Zachary family had strict family education, and since he had taken the girl's innocence, he should be responsible. I curved my lips and thought that Zachary was probably a good person. Marrying him seemed like a good choice. Unfortunately, it was only at this moment that I realized that Zachary married me because he felt guilty. I looked so much like Chloe that he mistook me for her when he was drunk, which led to that absurd night. Pulling myself out of the memories, I blinked my sore eyes. I picked up the cigarette that Judy had dropped on the ground and stuffed it, along with the pregnancy test report in my pocket, into the trash can. Judy hurriedly stopped me. "What are you doing? Aren't you going to tell Zachary that you're pregnant?" I didn't say anything. My gaze shifted to the suddenly lit up screen of my phone. Chloe was being interviewed by the media. She was still wearing a cheongsam, and there was an extra string of sandalwood Buddhist beads on her fair and slender wrist. I recognized that it was Zachary's. I heard that it was a relic left by his mother and was supposed to be given to the lover he would spend the rest of his life with. I had half-jokingly asked him for it before, but was ruthlessly rejected. Now, it was actually on Chloe's wrist. I curled my lips sarcastically. Chloe gave a sweet smile to the camera and deliberately fiddled with the Buddhist beads. The reporter asked knowingly, "Miss Bai, was this given by Mr. Zachary?" Yes, it was him. Chloe bit her lip, putting on a look of a shy girl. "However, Mr. Zachary and I are just friends for now." "Friends who have kissed?" She nodded, on the verge of crying. "I was young and impulsive before. After a quarrel, I went abroad to study acting without even saying goodbye. Dear media friends, please help me persuade Zachary not to be angry with me anymore. We've already kissed." Chloe's voice grew lower and lower, and her eyes were red, like a wronged little rabbit, which made people feel pity for her. So, fans and the media spontaneously pleaded for her, "President Zachary, please forgive Chloe. You two are really a perfect match." Judy was so angry that she cursed loudly beside me. "Damn it. Shameless. Doesn't she know that Zachary is already married?" Of course Chloe knew. The first movie she took on after returning to China was a collaboration with me. One day when we were back at the hotel after work, she called out to me, "Mrs. Zachary, are you happy with your married life?" I didn't understand what she meant and was about to ask her when she gave a meaningful smile and walked away straight. It was also that night that Zachary, who had always been cold and distant and never cared about me, came to the film set to find me for the first time. The sound insulation in the room wasn't good, and I bit my lip hard. Zachary brushed my hair at the end, coaxing me in a hoarse voice, "Honey, be good. Open your mouth." After 3 years of a secret marriage, it was the first time he called me, honey. I was so overjoyed that I thought he had finally started to accept me. But I didn't notice that Chloe was staying next to my room. He had come to find me on purpose just to make her angry. Zachary had never liked me. By the time I realized this, I had been pregnant for 3 months. I had originally planned to go to Zachary after the press conference ended and tell him that he was going to be a father. However, that video got on the hot search first and completely revealed the inside story of our marriage. Before, I thought Zachary was cold and that he would never show any emotions when facing me. It was only today that I realized that he also had a side where his emotions got out of control. Just not towards me. Suddenly, I felt that these 3 years had been like a joke, and tears struggled to well up, smearing my delicate makeup. In my blurred vision, a pair of shiny leather shoes appeared. Zachary put his hands in his pockets and looked down at me, his voice without a ripple. "Fiona, you already know everything." I knew the reason why he married me. I also knew the reason why he was cold towards me. I wiped away my tears, stood up, and slapped him hard, cursing him, "Zachary, you're such a bastard." I had reserved an abortion surgery for a week later. Apart from Judy, I didn't tell anyone, including Zachary. However, on the day of the surgery, I was blocked by him in the corridor of the obstetrics department. Zachary stared at me for a few seconds, then slowly shifted his gaze to my belly and asked coldly, "Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant?" I found it rather funny. "Why should I tell you? I'm the father of the child." His tone was still indifferent. There was no emotion in it, just a statement of fact. Suddenly, I got angry and retorted, "Is someone who cheats during marriage even worthy of being a father?" This sentence seemed to successfully anger Zachary. He warned in a deep voice, "Fiona, don't be difficult." What was I being difficult about? The private hospital had very good security, and there were no random people around, but the quarrel still attracted the attention of the nurses. I didn't want to attract attention, so I pulled my mask up, but in the next second, I heard my number being called. It was my turn. I pushed Zachary away and walked into the consulting room. I had just taken 2 steps when suddenly I felt my body go light, and I was picked up horizontally. "Have you had enough of making a scene?" Zachary looked down at me. "You can vent your anger on me, but the child is innocent." He used a lot of strength, and I couldn't break free. I could only pound on him furiously. "Zachary, are you crazy? If you want the child, divorce me and go have a child with Chloe. Why are you interfering with my decision?" "Ah." Zachary suddenly let go of me and threw me into the back seat of the Maybach. Remembering that he and Chloe had kissed here in that video, I felt sick to my stomach. Ignoring my ugly expression, he pinched my chin and kissed me. There was a faint smell of blood in the air. Zachary bit my lip until it bled. For the first time, he lost control of his emotions because of me. He sneered, "Divorce? Fiona, don't even think about it." I furrowed my brows and looked up at Zachary. I couldn't figure out what he was thinking at all. He clearly didn't love me. Why did he still want to trap me? We faced each other in silence, neither of us saying a word. It was early autumn. A cold rain came unexpectedly as Zachary glanced out of the window, and there was a hint of worry in his expression. I followed his gaze and saw, sure enough, a light blue-green figure under a tree not far away. It was Chloe. She had also come. I raised the corners of my mouth bitterly. It seemed that Zachary really liked Chloe a lot. He liked her so much that when he came to the hospital to find me, he didn't forget to bring her along. Through the hazy rain and fog, Chloe stared at me stubbornly, her eyes seeming poisoned. When she looked at Zachary, she changed back to a pitiful look and sneezed at the right time. Zachary was indeed distressed. He was about to get out of the car when I deliberately called out to him, "You can only choose one between me and Chloe. If you really don't want a divorce, then let her hold a press conference right now, apologize to me in public, and admit that she has interfered in our marriage." The air was silent for a long time. Zachary didn't express his stance for a long while, and Chloe stared at him nervously. After 3 years, she knew that Zachary still had deep feelings for her, but she wasn't sure about my position in Zachary's heart. She was scared. She was afraid that he would agree to my request. She was afraid that he would abandon her from then on. I urged Zachary, "Have you thought it over?" Chloe got impatient. Like a rabbit baring its fangs, she glared at me resentfully. "Why should I apologize to you? Haven't you heard a saying? The one who isn't loved is the third party. So what if you're married to Zachary? In these 3 years, he hasn't forgotten about me for a single day." As if to prove this point, she raised her hand and waved it in front of me, showing off that string of Buddhist beads. "He hasn't even worn the family heirloom once. You're such a failure as Mrs. Zachary." The taunts were harsh. In the past, I probably would have been so angry that I passed out. But now, I just looked at her calmly, and my fingers suddenly clenched in my pocket. I hoped she would continue talking, say more. Chloe noticed my little movement and pointed at me, screaming, "Zachary, she's recording. She's recording." Zachary looked up at me, and I also looked at him. We just stared at each other, with only silence left between us. He hesitated for a long time, and finally, he stretched out his hand towards me. "Give me your phone." 06. I didn't move. Chloe came around, opened the car door, and rummaged through my pockets roughly. I was about to slap her when I found that I couldn't move. Zachary had grabbed my wrist. He said in a low voice, "I'm sorry, Fiona. I can't ruin Chloe. Her career is on the rise." Chloe. How affectionate he called her. He knew better than anyone else what kind of public opinion environment Chloe would face once the recording was exposed. So, he decided to wrong me to protect her. After deleting the recording, Chloe threw my phone back at me, hitting my stomach. I gasped in pain. Zachary seemed to panic. A hint of distress flashed across his eyes, and he asked with concern, "What's wrong? Is it serious?" Then he turned around and scolded Chloe, "Are you blind?" It was probably the first time that Chloe had been scolded by Zachary like this. She froze on the spot, and after several seconds, big tears rolled down her cheeks. She was extremely aggrieved. "Zachary, I didn't mean it." Zachary ignored her, rubbed my lower abdomen, and asked again, "Honey, does it hurt here?" The belated address, the belated concern. It was so hypocritical. I knocked his hand away, twitched the corners of my mouth, and forced out a pale smile. "Don't touch me. I feel sick." Sick. These two words hit Zachary hard. His face instantly turned ugly. Seeing this, Chloe cried even harder, but the corners of her mouth were turned up. She softly clung to Zachary and breathed softly in his ear. "Zachary, how could she say such things about you? During the time I was away from you, I've reflected a lot. I shouldn't have had such a bad temper back then. I always disappeared whenever we had a quarrel. Don't be angry with me. Forgive me, please. That night when you slept with her, I was listening next door, and my heart was almost broken. Don't do this to me again in the future, okay?" Zachary glanced at me and deliberately held her hand. "Okay, I promise." He picked her up and gently placed her in the passenger seat. I was driven out of the car. Standing by the roadside, I was like a joke. As he drove away, Zachary coldly warned me, "The Zachary family has shares in all private hospitals in the capital city. You can try registering at each one and see who dares to help you with the operation." I froze on the spot. No wonder he could find me here today. "Zachary, you're such a scoundrel." 07 The rain was getting heavier and heavier. I waited by the roadside for half an hour and finally saw Judy's car coming. Seeing that I was soaked through and looked pale, she handed me a dry towel and a cup of hot ginger tea. Judy looked at me through the rearview mirror and asked worriedly, "Last time when you went to a public hospital for a prenatal checkup, you were photographed by paparazzi, and netizens scolded you for getting pregnant before marriage. Now it's a private hospital, and right under Zachary's nose. With this situation, what are you going to do?" I dried my hair and lay wearily in the seat. I didn't say a word. A bombshell piece of news popped up on Weibo. Chloe and Zachary were photographed together by paparazzi again, and their relationship was confirmed. Her comment section was full of blessings. Finally, the sister and brother-in-law are back together. I'm so into it. Folks, who can understand? The Buddha-like gentleman in real life, and the female lead is also a big star. Get married. Please get married right here. I'll bring the Civil Affairs Bureau over. Last month, at the Qinglong Film Festival, Chloe and I were competing for the Best Actress award. The jury thought that my acting skills were better and awarded the prize to me. Her fans were not convinced and claimed that there was some shady business. They called me Water Queen one after another. My popularity among the public dropped sharply, and Chloe took the opportunity to snatch many of my endorsement resources. I didn't argue with her before. But now, I suddenly didn't want to endure it anymore. I logged into my personal account and directly at Chloe, "Miss Bai, did you knowingly be the third party in a relationship?" The attached picture was a wedding photo taken 3 years ago. In the photo, I was smiling with my eyes curved, affectionately holding Zachary's arm, and looking at him with eyes full of love. This Weibo post contained a huge amount of information. Instantly, it set off a hot search. The comments from netizens began to change their direction. What's going on? Fiona's husband is Zachary. I was just blessing Chloe. I didn't expect that she was the mistress. What getting back together? It's clearly cheating during marriage. How disgusting. Don't just scold the woman. The man isn't a good person either. He's been entangled with his first love while his wife is pregnant, and there are rumors everywhere. +1. On the surface, he's a cold and noble Buddha-like gentleman, but behind the scenes, he does such dirty things. I stared at the comment section and smiled with satisfaction. But a few seconds later, all the hashtags were removed, and instead, a statement was posted on the official website of the Zachary family group. Fabricating out of nothing. It didn't mention anyone by name. Nor did it mention who was fabricating out of nothing. The response was ambiguous, yet a large number of paid posters flooded into my comment section. Haha, the water queen has been slapped in the face. This marriage certificate looks photoshopped. Fortunately, I didn't fall for it. I was filled with bitterness. The uncontrollable anger burned in my chest, as if it was going to burn me up completely. When my rationality was on the verge of collapsing, I received a phone call. Zachary's voice rang in my ear, like poison coated with honey. He said, "Honey, this is your punishment. Do you still dare to mention divorce, huh?" I calmly replied, "Yes, I do." Then I hung up Zachary's phone. The consequence was that I was smeared black and blue, and my career completely collapsed. That night, when the Zachary family heard the news of the marriage change, they ordered me to go back to the old house. The magnificent living room was full of people. All of them were elders of the Zachary family. My father stood nervously in the corner, his hair gray, his skin darkened by the sun on the construction site, looking out of place. When he saw me coming, he gave me an honest and simple smile. He also mouthed to comfort me, "Don't be afraid. Dad will back you up." Zachary's grandfather scolded, "How did you enter the Zachary family's door in the first place? Have you forgotten? Now you dare to ask for a divorce. You've really grown wings." He had always thought that I had schemed and climbed into Zachary's bed before marrying into the wealthy family. I looked at Zachary. He was lazily leaning on the sofa, with no intention of explaining for me. My father couldn't bear to hear me being scolded and protected me behind him. "My daughter isn't that kind of person. It was your son who came to propose marriage and said he would take responsibility. That's why I agreed to this marriage. Now it's only been 3 years since we got married, and the video on the internet has caused a huge stir. Your son can cheat, but when my daughter asks for a divorce, she becomes the sinner instead?" Zachary's grandfather was stunned for a moment. He was old and didn't pay attention to entertainment news. Presumably, he didn't even know about the incident of Zachary kissing Chloe passionately in the car. I clicked on the video and played it in public. Everyone could see it clearly. Other relatives of the Zachary family tried to smooth things over. "Fiona, it's not a big deal. Young people from wealthy families just play around outside. Besides, you're already pregnant. No one can shake your position. Be obedient. Just turn a blind eye, and life will go on as usual." I walked up to Zachary, and his eyes fell on my belly. I asked him calmly, speaking softly, "Isn't it good to divorce me and marry the person you truly love?" Zachary sneered, "Fiona, that's enough. Stop playing hard to get with me. You're just jealous of Chloe. You're acting like she used to, making a fuss and throwing tantrums, just to make me coax you, right? Fine, I'll coax you." As he said that, he reached out and pinched my face, looking affectionate. But his tone was extremely perfunctory. "Honey, be good. Don't mention divorce again. Have the baby in peace. I'll give you whatever you want. Are you satisfied now?" I twitched the corners of my mouth and smiled faintly. He still thought that I was just throwing a tantrum until now. He thought that I was using tricks to get his attention. How ridiculous. Looking at the face that had once made my heart flutter countless times, I felt for the first time that it was just SOSO. In fact, he wasn't worth it. It was my love that gilded him. After realizing this, I coldly pushed his hand away and stood up. Zachary's grandfather had already figured out the whole story. He grabbed his cane and hit Zachary hard on the back. "You disgrace. Solve the problem with that woman outside immediately." The Zachary family attached great importance to family traditions. Scandals would affect the stock market, so the old man was naturally furious. The living room was in chaos. Several people went up to stop the fight. My father pulled me back to a safe place. Daughter, Dad will take you home. This place is too unlucky. I answered and followed my father to leave. Zachary was beaten until he knelt on the ground. He wiped the blood from his mouth and stared fixedly in my direction. Fiona, don't go. I ignored him. Nor did I look back. In the past, whenever he did something wrong and was scolded by the old man, I would always be so distressed that I would cry. But today, I remained indifferent throughout the whole process and didn't even want to look at him. Zachary was stunned for a few seconds. After realizing what was going on, all the blood drained from his face. He finally realized that when I mentioned divorce, I wasn't just joking. I really didn't want him anymore. Before leaving the old house, Zachary's grandfather called me back. He handed me an agreement. It's true that brat was in the wrong first in this matter. I won't stop you if you want a divorce, but the Zachary family has few descendants. I hope you can give birth to this child. I flipped through the contract. It was clearly written in black and white that regardless of who had the custody of the child, the Zachary family would pay 100 million yuan in child support every year. He knew that I was short of money. Because of the pressure of public opinion, people in the entertainment circle avoided me like the plague. Several endorsement contracts were terminated one after another, and I was claimed compensation by the brands. I owed a huge debt. When I got home, my father took out an iron box from under the bed. Inside was all his savings, in various amounts. He said, Daughter, don't be afraid. Dad will support you. Seeing his wrinkled and calloused hands, my eyes became moist. My mother died of dystocia when giving birth to me. This old man played both the roles of father and mother and brought me up. When I was 8 years old, I was laughed at by my classmates for having no mother to raise me. My father rushed into the classroom, grabbed their ears, and taught them a lesson. Who are you talking about, you little brats? My daughter doesn't have a mother, but she has me. If you don't keep your mouths clean, I'll beat you kids. When I was 13 years old, I got my first period and soiled the sheets. My father ran to the supermarket to buy sanitary napkins for me and asked the neighbor aunt to teach me how to use them. I was both shy and scared. He told me, this is a normal physiological phenomenon. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Daughter, congratulations on growing up. When I was 17 years old, I applied for the acting department, and the tuition was very expensive. My father was busy at the construction site during the day and ran errands to deliver takeout at night. He only slept 4 hours a day. When I found out, he even apologized to me. Daughter, Dad is useless. But no matter how poor our family is, we must support you to finish college. Perhaps, God had shown mercy on me before. After graduation, I met Judy. She took me into the entertainment circle, fought for resources all the way, and after 5 years of hard work, I finally won the Best Actress award. It was the first time my father went to the cinema. He waved the light stick, looking like a young lad, sitting in the audience and smiling happily. Hey, look, that's my daughter on the stage, the Best Actress. There were really too many such things. For example, now, my career was ruined, my marriage was in trouble, and I was almost pushed to the brink of despair. My father held my hand and said solemnly, no matter what decision you make, Dad will support you. If you want to have the baby, Dad will work hard to make money and be a good grandfather. If you want to abort the baby and get a divorce, Dad will accompany you to find a lawyer and file a lawsuit. My father was really good to me. I burst into tears. He hurriedly helped me wipe my tears and coaxed me just like when I was a child. Don't cry. Dad will always be your strongest backer. But he was already old and had fallen ill due to years of overwork. He had problems with his heart. I didn't want him to worry about me anymore. Besides, when I reserved the abortion surgery, I had a series of examinations. The doctor said that I had a weak constitution and that if I removed this child, I might never be able to get pregnant again in the future. After thinking about it for a long time, I decided to sign that agreement, to keep the child. At the same time, I pulled myself together and started to prepare for the divorce. However, I searched all the lawyers in the capital city, but no one dared to take my case. Because Zachary had given them a warning. Just when I was about to give up, a man came to me on his own initiative. He was wearing a windbreaker, tall and slender, with cold and clear eyes. I somehow felt that he looked familiar. "Excuse me, who are you?" He handed me a business card and introduced himself. "Miss Fiona, hello. I'm Terry." Terry. It seemed that I had seen this name somewhere. Oh, I remembered. He was the head of a famous law firm. I didn't expect that he would come to visit me on his own initiative. I hesitated and asked, "Are you here?" Before I could finish my sentence, Terry nodded without hesitation. "Yes." I was stunned for a moment. He looked down at me. His dark eyes were like a deep pool, and his emotions were unclear. Terry said, "I'm here to help you with the divorce." The rain that had been falling for days suddenly stopped. A ray of bright golden sunlight shone through the thick clouds and fell on Terry. For no reason, it made me think of a poem. After mountains and rivers, there seems to be no way out, yet suddenly a village appears with the willows and blossoms. And that was exactly the case. I checked Terry's resume. He graduated from a prestigious university. He had never lost a divorce case he handled. The most important thing was that he wasn't involved in the Beijing social circle. He wouldn't be restrained by Zachary. He was all business. "Miss Fiona, please prepare the evidence of the breakdown of your marital relationship and the evidence of the other party's fault as soon as possible." I packaged the video of the passionate kiss and the screenshots of Chloe's Weibo and sent them to Terry. It would take time for the court to accept the case. Recently, my morning sickness was quite serious. I always felt uncomfortable when I smelled the exhaust fumes of cars in the city. In order to let me rest and take care of the fetus, my father took me back to our hometown. The late autumn in the south of the Yangtze River was like a poem or a painting. With black tiles on blue bricks, small bridges over flowing water, and stepping on the stone-paved road, at the end of the alley was an old Western-style house. We hadn't been back for a long time. The dust had accumulated inside the house. My father was afraid that I would choke, so he quickly pushed me out of the door. I stood idly in the yard, enjoying the scenery. The sunset glow in the small town is more charming than that in the city. The golden light on the ground shatters the setting sun. The sweet-scented osmanthus beside the road emits a fragrant aroma, and the pomegranates are laden with heavy fruits, bending the branches down. The door of the Western-style building next door creaked open. Terry walked out of it, wearing home clothes. His bangs hung down, covering his long eyelashes. Besides his usual coldness, there was a bit more softness in his look. Seeing me, he wasn't surprised and greeted me generously. "Nice to see you again, Miss Fiona." I was stunned for a second and stammered, "What a coincidence. Do you also live here?" Terry shook the key in his hand and denied it with a smile. "I'm not busy recently. I'm taking my annual leave and came here for a trip." "Not busy?" Last time when I went to his law firm to sign the power of attorney, I heard his subordinates sighing in the pantry. Terry has over a dozen cases on his hands. How does he still have the energy to take on Fiona's case? He's been working around the clock every day. He's really risking his life. You don't understand. This is the special treatment for a beautiful woman. I opened my mouth, but before I could ask my question, the intense vibration of a mobile phone rang out between us. Terry's phone was ringing. Someone was consulting him about work matters. He patiently answered the questions. Afraid that I would be bored waiting, he peeled an orange and handed it to me. I was too embarrassed to refuse, so I stuffed it into my mouth all at once. The sweet and sour juice spread in my mouth. After hanging up the phone, Terry took a casual glance and saw my bulging mouth. He couldn't help but chuckle. "So cute, like a little hamster." Instantly, my face flushed red. He also realized that the atmosphere was a bit ambiguous, so he coughed and casually changed the topic. "For your case, the lawsuit has already been submitted. The trial will probably start in about 3 months. I replied in an extremely low voice. "Recently, has your soon-to-be ex-husband contacted you?" No. I had already blocked Zachary long ago. Terry nodded and reminded me, after you left the capital city, he seemed quite worried. He's been asking around about where you are every day. I pursed my lips and didn't say anything. How could Zachary be worried about me? He should have made up with Chloe and been all lovey-dovey with her. As the sky gradually darkened, the smell of daily life from every household wafted into my nose. I actually really wanted to ask him why he still came to the south of the Yangtze River for a holiday when he was so busy, but Terry tactfully turned around and went back inside. He hadn't walked a few steps when his phone rang again. He didn't even have time to say goodbye and could only give me an apologetic look. At the moment when the door opened, I saw the cold boxed meal on the table. Was that his dinner? I actually really wanted to ask him why he still came to the south of the Yangtze River for a holiday when he was so busy, but after thinking about it several times, I didn't ask in the end. Afraid of disturbing his call, I typed a line on my phone and showed it to him through the window glass. Terry, when you're free later, would you like to taste my father's cooking? Terry raised his eyebrows and smiled. I had lived in the south of the Yangtze River for almost 3 months. The pace of life here was very slow. During the day, I would boil a pot of tea, curl up in the attic to read and write, and could keep doing this until the sun went down. In the evening, I would take a walk with my father, and then listen to a piece of pingtan, a kind of traditional Chinese musical performance, falling asleep accompanied by the soft Wu dialect. Terry would visit occasionally. He was gentle, polite, and considerate. My father liked him quite a lot and would invite him to stay for dinner from time to time. The house he rented was next to mine, and the balconies were very close to each other. In the late stage of pregnancy, I started to get up frequently at night. After getting up too many times, I couldn't fall asleep again. So I simply wrapped myself in a coat and sat in the rocking chair on the balcony, lost in thought. Near the end of the year, small red lanterns were hung in every street and alley. Terry handed me a bunch of candied haws through the railing. It's sweet. Have a taste. I had already gotten used to accepting his treats. Without refusing, I took a bite of a hawthorn wrapped in crystal clear sugar frosting. Before I could taste it, I heard him say, "I'm leaving." My chewing movement paused. I looked up at him. I had to admit that Terry was really good looking. Even though I had seen so many handsome guys in the entertainment circle, I would still be attracted by his face. The silvery moonlight shone on him, making him look cold and lonely, as if there had been a snowfall. Behind his thin glasses, his beautiful peach blossom-shaped eyes narrowed slightly, like they were filled with tiny stars. Someone like him could easily stir a girl's heart. I looked away and said slowly, "Okay. Have a safe trip." Terry lowered his eyes and asked softly, "Don't you want to ask where I'm going?" "Huh? The trial starts next week. I'm going back to the law firm to prepare the materials." I was slightly startled. It turned out that so much time had passed. I hadn't thought of Zachary for a long time either. It seemed that falling out of love and forgetting were not that difficult. My distraction made Terry misunderstand. He thought that I was worried about losing the lawsuit. To make me happy, he somehow took out 2 buckets of fireworks. There was a small river behind the Western-style building, and across the bridge was an open space. I stood on the balcony and looked at Terry, who was lighting the fireworks not far away. He waved at me and shouted with a smile, "Fiona, I wish you a happy divorce in advance and hope you embrace your new life." The following words were drowned out by the loud noise. The brilliant fireworks spread across the inky night sky. In an instant, all the splendor burst forth before my eyes. Terry walked out of the firelight, stood downstairs, and held up his phone to show me the words on the screen. "For you, I will never lose a case." I slightly raised the corners of my mouth. The candied haws in my mouth tasted so sweet. After the fireworks ended, I had a good sleep for the first time in a long while. When I woke up the next day, Terry had already left. My father went to the market to buy groceries. The courtyard gate was open. Several children from the neighborhood smelled the fragrance of wintersweet and couldn't move their feet. I smiled and beckoned them to come in. I moved a few chairs and sat under the tree chatting with them. We talked from Doraemon to Cardcaptor Sakura, and then from Boonie Bears to Peppa Pig. They stared at my belly and asked whether it was a boy or a girl inside. I honestly said that I didn't know. Suddenly, one of the children pointed behind me and raised his voice. "Sister, someone is looking at you." I looked in the direction he pointed. A familiar figure came into my sight. Zachary was standing at the entrance of the courtyard, staring at me for a long, long time. So long that his eyes turned red. Then he opened his mouth, his voice hoarse. "Fiona, I've finally found you." 12. I hadn't expected Zachary to come after me here. According to Judy, he had been almost crazy looking for me. This wasn't like his usual character. As proud as he was, he would never lower his head for me. But this time, it seemed that he had changed. After the children left, only Zachary and I were left in the courtyard. He stopped in front of me and raised his hand, wanting to touch my belly. "It's already so big. Has the baby been bothering you?" I took a step back to avoid his touch. He was stung by my action. His fingers froze in the air, trembling slightly. After a while, I heard him say, "I've missed you so much since you left." He stared straight at me, and the affection hidden in his eyes was almost overflowing. He called my name gently. "Fiona, it took me 3 months to finally figure out one thing. I'm not in love with Chloe. I'm in love with you." I didn't know what had caused his change, but this sentence was so absurd that I couldn't help but ask in return, "You love me?" Zachary said he loved me. How ridiculous. If he loved me, he would have treated me as a substitute for his first love, ignored me for 3 years after marriage. When I was so excited to tell him that I was pregnant, he was kissing his first love passionately in the car, and he even didn't hesitate to ruin my career to safeguard her reputation. This was the love he claimed. How disgusting. As I thought about it in my mind, I actually vomited. Zachary didn't dodge. The pampered noble young master wasn't afraid of getting dirty or smelly. He bent down and carefully patted my back. "You don't believe me, do you? I admit that at first, I married you because you looked like Chloe. I used you to make her jealous and force her to give in and make up with me. But when she really came back to me, I felt extremely bored. I went crazy looking for you when you asked for a divorce and disappeared. Only then did I realize that what I felt for Chloe was just obsession, and for you, it's..." The evening breeze blew up the strands of hair on his forehead, and the mockery on my face was clearly reflected in his clear pupils. For a moment, he was at a loss and tightly grasped my hand. "Honey, don't look at me like that, give me one more chance. Let's start over, okay? There is a kind of people in this world who are always obsessed with the things they have lost. Anything that they haven't obtained and anything that belongs to the past always seem to be the most suitable for them. Zachary is just such a person. In fact, he doesn't really love me, nor does he love Chloe. He only loves himself. Only when something is lost can he keep thinking about it all the time. I sneered and cursed at him. "Zachary, don't be so cheap. The lawyer has informed you of the court date, right? Remember to attend on time. Now, please get out of my house." This was the first time I had spoken harshly to him. His pupils suddenly trembled, and tears suddenly fell, hitting the back of my hand. Hot. I wiped off the water stains in disgust and turned around to go back inside the house. When I was closing the door, Zachary pushed against the door frame, and his hand was pinched until it turned purple and blue. I was startled. "Are you crazy?" He endured the pain with the veins on his temple bulging and cold sweat pouring down. He asked word by word, "What should I do to make you withdraw the lawsuit?" Zachary asked me how to withdraw the divorce lawsuit. I didn't answer. Actually, I had given him a chance before. On the day when I reserved the abortion, in that Maybach, I put forward 3 conditions and asked him to choose between Chloe and me, but unfortunately, he chose the former and abandoned me. Zachary seemed to recall this memory too. He looked regretful and was eager to make up for it. "Give me 1 day, and I'll prove it to you." "Prove how much you love me?" Unfortunately, it was too late. 13. When my father came home and learned that Zachary had been here, the old man, who had been smiling and putting food on my plate just now, frowned. How dare he come here? He poured himself a glass of white wine and started scolding Zachary while drinking. I raised my daughter with so much care, but after she married him, she didn't enjoy any happiness at all and was only wronged. What kind of person is he? Don't let me see him again. Otherwise, I'll beat him up every time I see him. My father was so emotional and indignant for me. I advised him, Dad, you can scold him as much as you want, but you have a bad heart. Drink less wine. I know. But daughter, what are your plans after the divorce? I deliberately teased him, I'll take the child support money and travel around the world with you and the baby. My father was really amused by me and choked while laughing. He covered his heart and took a few minutes to recover, then said earnestly, Dad is old and can't accompany you for a lifetime. Recently, I always dreamed about your mother. She blamed me for not protecting you well. That lawyer Terry who lived next door to us some time ago is a nice person. I think he's more reliable than that guy surnamed Fu. Probably because he had drunk too much. My father started talking nonstop, and the topic was getting more and more off track. I quickly interrupted him, cleaned up the dishes, and fled back to my bedroom as if running away. As soon as I lay down on the bed, my mobile phone in my pocket vibrated. Judy sent me a message, quickly check the hot search. Chloe is doomed. I clicked on Weibo. The constantly popping up messages made my brain freeze for a short while. The official website of the Zachary family group clarified under that fabricating out of nothing Weibo post, after the social engagement, President Zachary was sending Ms. Bai home. She was drunk and not sober. President Zachary pushed her away quickly, and there was no passionate kiss. The Buddhist beads were just the same style. Don't talk nonsense anymore. Mrs. President will be unhappy. I couldn't help but sneer. The public relations team of the Zachary family is really good at whitewashing. With just a few words, they took off the label of Zachary's cheating during marriage. There was a heated discussion in the comment section. Who doesn't know that the so-called water queen schemed to climb into his bed when they broke up? Chloe is President Zachary's true love. Agree. The mistress and her fans should get out of the entertainment circle. Chloe's personal Weibo was quickly flooded with comments. There were curses everywhere in the comment section. Not only was there online violence, but the indignant netizens also started to dig up her black materials from the period when she went abroad to study acting, smoking, drinking, failing exams, having casual sex. Even a former assistant reported her for tax evasion under her real name. The incident escalated, and the authorities got involved in the investigation. The entertainment circle imposed a soft ban on her. Endorsement contracts were terminated one after another, and variety shows and films hurriedly mosaicked her out overnight. At this point, Chloe's career was ruined. I was the beneficiary of this turmoil. Judy said that in just half an hour, her mailbox had been flooded with business inquiries, and even the movie for her postpartum comeback had started to be negotiated. She was so happy that she cried. You've finally survived this, Fiona. My nose felt sour. It had been really not easy all the way. At this time, a voice message came in on WeChat. It was from Terry. I clicked on it. The background sound on the other end was very noisy. Obviously, he was still busy. Terry said, "Look out of the window." I raised my head. Under the vast night sky, several drones were hovering. The twinkling lights formed two lines of words. Congratulations, LFY. Please continue to shine brightly in the field you love. After thanking Terry, suddenly several fireworks exploded outside the window. The sound of firecrackers came one after another. I suddenly remembered that today seemed to be New Year's Eve. I should accompany my father to stay up late on New Year's Eve. I excitedly went downstairs, wanting to tell him, "Old man, don't worry anymore. Your daughter's career is booming again. I'll continue to act in movies to earn money and stay by your side in the future." Just as I reached the corner of the stairs, I was blocked by someone face to face. It was Chloe. I took a few steps back warily. I started looking around for my father. The TV in the living room was playing the Spring Festival Gala, and a newly poured glass of white wine on the coffee table hadn't been finished yet. It meant that my father was at home. However, it was impossible that he didn't know that Chloe had suddenly broken in. Since he knew, How could he not show up? A bad premonition suddenly rose in my heart. Where's my dad? Chloe burst out laughing. At the door. I looked out through the French window. My legs went weak, and I almost fell to my knees. My father was lying straight in the snow. It's none of my business. Your father has a bad temper. I just scolded you a few times, and he covered his heart and fell down. I seemed to hear Chloe's words, and yet it seemed that I didn't. I remembered what my father had said at the dinner table. He mentioned my mother, mentioned Terry, mentioned Zachary, but he never mentioned himself. Did he already know that there was something wrong with his body? Why didn't I notice it? I even hid back in my room because I thought he was too nagging. Regret and self-blame flooded in like a tide, almost drowning me. I didn't have time to think more. Instinctively, I took out my mobile phone and dialed the emergency number. Seeing my flustered and painful expression, Chloe's smile became even brighter. Fiona, you ruined my career, snatched Zachary away from me, and made me so miserable. Well, as a return of courtesy, I'll also let you taste the feeling of losing the person you love the most. She did it on purpose. She deliberately angered my father and made him fall ill. Instantly, I lost all my rationality. I pushed the crazy woman's head against the wall, again and again, with all my strength. Chloe screamed in pain, her hair in a mess, looking like a madwoman. During the scuffle, she pushed me hard. I didn't hold on to the railing firmly and fell down the stairs. The feeling of rolling and bumping made me completely dazed. When I came to my senses, my white dress had been stained red with blood. I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen, as if being stabbed by a knife. The sound of the ambulance came from outside the door. The medical staff rushed towards me, put me on the stretcher, and asked me how I was feeling. I couldn't say a word. I stared fixedly at the door. Another group of rescuers were kneeling in the snow, racing against time to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation on my father. He'll be okay. My father must be okay. He'll live to 100 years old and will always be by my side. I comforted myself over and over again in my heart. Until the ambulance workers looked at each other, shook their heads with solemn expressions. I propped myself up and shouted at the top of my lungs, "Why did you stop? Save my dad. Please save him. Sorry, your father had a heart attack. We've tried our best." I watched helplessly as the usually lively old man was put into a body bag, while I was pushed into the emergency room. The ceiling lights in the hospital were really dazzling, making my eyes full of tears. I couldn't seem to feel the physical pain anymore. I just felt my heart aching again and again. The nurse shouted, "The pregnant woman is bleeding heavily and shows signs of premature birth. Go and contact her family quickly." In the last second before my consciousness became blurred, I was thinking, family? I don't have a family anymore. On the New Year's Eve when families get together, I lost my father who loved me the most. 15 When the hospital called, Zachary was in a meeting. Once the clarifying Weibo post was released, the public opinion outside fermented, and the stock market fluctuated again. The board of directors asked him to give an explanation. He tugged at his tie, feeling extremely irritable. He thought to himself that these old guys were delaying him from getting back together with his wife. The secretary rushed into the meeting room. "President Zachary, something happened to Mrs. Zachary." Zachary froze. The fountain pen in his fingertips dropped to the ground. He booked the nearest flight and rushed back to the south of the Yangtze River. Then he rushed into the hospital at the fastest speed, with a thin layer of sweat on his forehead. The red light in the operating room was like an invisible big hand, tightly gripping his neck. He almost suffocated. The time passed slowly. Zachary didn't eat or drink and kept waiting at the door of the operating room without taking a single step away. 6 hours later, the door opened. The doctor came out of it, took off his mask. "Mr. Zachary, the baby is safe and sound. But your wife's bleeding can't be stopped, and her will to live is weak. She might." Zachary suddenly looked up. He felt as if something was stuck in his throat, uncomfortable and stinging. After pausing for a long time, he said, "Go on." His voice carried a slight tremor. "The doctor said she might not survive tonight." His eyes instantly turned red. The huge panic was like a tightly woven net, firmly trapping him. Zachary slowly slid down along the wall and slumped to the ground. It was like a blunt knife grinding his flesh and blood, and the pain spread all over his body. He had just finally realized his feelings for her, and was she going to leave him now? No, he wouldn't allow it. Find the best experts and use the best medicine. If you can't save her, your career is over. The doctor didn't dare to offend this master and summoned the team to discuss further plans. When Zachary's grandfather arrived, only Zachary was left at the empty door of the emergency room. He was sitting on the cold tiles, burying his head deeply in his arms, looking lifeless. You didn't cherish it when you had it, Zachary's grandfather sighed. You always regret it only when you've lost it. Zachary smiled self-mockingly. Yes, during the 3 years of marriage, he had never cherished Fiona. When she broke her leg while filming an action scene and called him crying, he coldly threw out a sentence, "Let your assistant take you to the hospital. Don't tell me about such trifles in the future." But when Chloe just got a scratch, he rushed to the film set in a rage and supported her. Fiona didn't know. After she got home, she was still silly enough to act coquettishly towards him. "Honey, it hurts so much. Could you show some concern for me?" Zachary didn't even lift his eyelids. Can concern relieve the pain? No, but I want to hear it. He interrupted her directly. Sorry, I can't. Then he turned around and asked Chloe with great concern, "Tell me if it hurts. I'll stay with you." Such a tragic contrast happened almost every day. Later, it seemed that Fiona had accumulated enough disappointment and stopped taking the initiative to look for him. He should have felt relieved, but suddenly, he felt empty inside. He often got distracted during meetings and wanted to go home to see Fiona. There were even several times when he mistook Chloe for her. At first, Zachary thought it was just a withdrawal reaction and didn't pay much attention to it. It wasn't until the video of the passionate kiss was exposed and Fiona slapped him and called him a bastard that his heart felt a sharp, dense pain as if being pricked by needles. He didn't know why, but he just didn't want a divorce and wouldn't let her abort their child. During the months when Fiona disappeared, Zachary hadn't had a good night's sleep. He would wake up in panic in the middle of the night. Chloe came to him and questioned him, "Zachary, what kind of magic potion did she give you? I've already come back to you. Why are you still crazily looking for a substitute? If you keep doing this, it's over between us." The woman became more and more excited as she spoke, almost hysterical. Zachary looked at her silently. Suddenly, he felt very tired of her. How could he have regarded Fiona as a substitute for Chloe? Clearly, apart from their somewhat similar looks, their personalities were completely different. Fiona was gentle, considerate, and emotionally stable. Chloe was unrestrained, willful, and reckless. He had had enough. Zachary's mother passed away very early. His father was busy with work and neglected to discipline him. No one taught him what love was. Nor did anyone teach him how to distinguish an unhealthy romantic relationship. But that day, he suddenly realized. It turned out that he had mistaken his unwillingness to let go as true love and missed the person he should have cherished the most. 16 at 4 o'clock in the morning, the hospital corridor was deserted. Zachary's grandfather had already left. Zachary still maintained that posture, sitting on the ground without moving. An aunt passed by and handed him a tissue, gently persuading him, "Young man, it'll be okay. Don't cry." Zachary touched his face. It was wet. He then realized that he was crying. "My daughter also had massive bleeding during premature labor, and the critical illness notice was issued. Alas, I was really at the end of my rope, so I went to Chisha temple to pray for her. Fortunately, when I came back, she slowly regained consciousness. You see, people always need something to hold on to. So don't give up hope. Maybe she'll wake up in the next second." The speaker didn't mean anything special, but the listener took it to heart. Zachary supported himself against the wall and slowly stood up. He said thank you to her and walked out of the hospital in a daze. When a person is powerless, he can only choose other ways to hope for a miracle to happen. For example, faith. At this time, Chisha temple was already closed. A black Maybach was parked by the roadside. Zachary got out of the car and looked at the solemn road leading to the Buddhist temple in front of him. Without hesitation, he knelt down and bowed with the most pious gesture to worship and pray. The cold wind was biting, and the chill penetrated to the bone. The fine snow fell on his face, and when it melted, it looked just like tears. He stood up, climbed up one step, and bent his knees again. He bowed his head with each step. He bowed all the way to the temple gate. The monk on duty heard the noise and made a single-handed salute. "Benefactor, if you want to make a wish, please come back after dawn." Zachary lowered his eyes and remained kneeling. "I can't wait. Please make an exception for me, master, and let me get a peace talisman." The two were at a stalemate. The monk was moved by his determination and sincerity and led him inside. In this pure land, with 3 sticks of incense burning, Zachary put his hands together, sincerely and silently, and whispered softly, "I pray to the gods and Buddhas for protection. I have no other thoughts in my heart. I only wish that my wife can get through this difficult time." The prayer flags fluttered as if in response. By the time he got the consecrated peace talisman, it was already dawn. Zachary held it carefully in his palm and rushed back to the hospital. Perhaps the gods had really heard his prayer. 2 hours later, the light in the emergency room went out. The doctor informed him with a relieved look, "Mr. Zachary, congratulations. Your wife's bleeding has stopped, and she is now out of danger." Fiona was transferred to a general ward. But she hadn't woken up yet. Zachary took out the peace talisman and gently stuffed it into her palm. "Honey, don't sleep anymore. Open your eyes and look at me." Fiona's eyelashes fluttered. She had a very long dream. In the dream, she didn't drink that glass of champagne laced with an aphrodisiac, and naturally, she didn't meet Zachary. She worked hard filming to make money, put love behind her, and took her father to the hospital for physical examinations whenever she was free and traveled around the world. Every year on her birthday, she only made one wish. "I wish Dad a long life." However, there was a voice constantly calling her in her ear. "Honey, please, wake up. Honey?" Fiona's eyelashes fluttered more vigorously. It was like emerging from deep water, and all the shackles on her body were removed. She slowly opened her eyes, saw Zachary's face and the snow-white ceiling of the hospital, and then realized that it was just a long dream. Her father didn't live to 100 years old. After waking up, I did 2 things. First, I sued Chloe on the charge of intentional homicide. There was a surveillance camera installed at my home entrance, which truthfully restored everything that happened that day. When the doorbell rang, my father went to open the door. Hearing Chloe insulting me with her words, he got angry and argued with her. Not long after that, he covered his heart and fell to the ground. Chloe didn't do anything to save him and even laughed so hard that she couldn't straighten up. After I submitted this video to the police, Chloe was finally scared. She came to the hospital to find me, wanting to compensate and reach a settlement. I picked up the water cup on the table and threw it at her. "In your dreams." I was determined to make her stay in prison for a long time. She was scared by my furious look and shrank behind Zachary. Crying, she grabbed the corner of his clothes. "Zachary, for the sake of our past relationship, please plead for me. I really don't want to go to jail." Zachary's eyes flickered slightly. After all, it was his unforgettable first love. Even though he didn't love her anymore, he didn't want her to have a too miserable life. 1 second before he opened his mouth, I took out the peace talisman from under my pillow. "Zachary, you got this for me. On the night I gave birth, there were rumors in the entertainment circle that the Buddha-like gentleman stepped down from his pedestal, stood in the boundless wind and snow, and kowtowed step by step to get a peace talisman for me. The media reports showed deep affection. I raised my head and asked him in return, but do you know why I had massive bleeding during premature labor?" Zachary shook his head. I smiled and told him the truth in a calm voice, "Because your Chloe pushed me down the stairs. My child and I almost died on the operating table. Now, do you still want to persuade me to let her go?" Chloe's face showed visible panic, and she tried to defend herself in vain. "Zachary, it's not She was pushed to the ground forcefully. Zachary shook off her hand, tidied his sleeves with extreme disgust, and dialed the police number himself, wanting to send her to prison. Chloe was finally completely panicked. In order to avoid being caught by the police, she fled around in the building and finally accidentally slipped and fell from the rooftop. She died on the spot. Second, I took care of my father's funeral arrangements. The old man used to be quite tall, but now he had become a small box. On the day of the burial, Terry came to pay his respects. I heard that during the days when I was in a coma and hospitalized, he wanted to visit me in the obstetrics department but was blocked by Zachary's security guards outside the door. At this moment, he was wearing a black coat, bowed his head and entered the morning hall, and placed a bunch of white chrysanthemums in front of the portrait. We looked at each other silently for a few seconds. He said in a heavy tone, "Please accept my condolences." Just these two simple words easily stirred up all my emotions. I remembered those months in the south of the Yangtze River. My father would go to the market to buy groceries in the morning. Before going out, he would always ask me what I wanted to eat that day. When passing by the neighbors, he would also greet Terry and ask him if he had any taboos regarding scallions, ginger, or garlic. There were too many memories about my father between him and me. The tears that I had held back for many days couldn't be held back anymore. They rolled down like broken strings of beads. I had never thought that one day I would cry so hysterically. Terry sat beside me, quietly listening to me crying. His hand was on my shoulder, wanting to pat my back to comfort me. However, suddenly, I was pulled into someone's arms by another hand. Zachary held my waist, and his eyes looking at Terry were full of hostility. "Don't touch my wife." It was a warning tone. Terry raised his eyebrows and corrected him, "Mr. Zachary, both you and I know that Miss Fiona is already in the process of the divorce lawsuit. In other words, don't call her wife anymore. So what?" Zachary's hand around my waist tightened even more. "As long as the judgment hasn't been made, she's still my wife." He hugged me and strode out of the morning hall. I struggled all the way, but he held me in his arms even more tightly. "You haven't finished your confinement yet. Don't cry, okay?" In the deserted corner, his fingertip gently brushed the corner of my eye, gently wiping away my tears. "Be careful not to hurt your eyes." I knocked his hand away, and my throat was full of bitterness. Lawyer Terry is right. Don't call me that anymore in the future. Also, please leave now. My father and I don't want to see you. The old man had said that don't let him see Zachary again, otherwise, he would beat him up every time he saw him. Presumably, he really hated him. Zachary's hand dropped to his side, his knuckles turning white from clenching. There was also obvious panic and helplessness in his eyes. "Fiona, don't." I didn't continue listening and turned back, kneeling in front of the spirit tablet. Whatever he wanted to say had nothing to do with me. 18 On the 7th day after my father passed away, the divorce lawsuit was heard in court. In the lounge of the court, Terry sat down with a stack of materials in his arms. He had serious dark circles under his eyes. Presumably, he had made full preparations. He was confident of victory. "Fiona, we will definitely win." I believed him. Perhaps even my father in heaven was blessing me. The lawsuit went very smoothly. When the judge announced the divorce judgment in court, I was still in a daze for a long time. The 3-year marriage had finally become a thing of the past. From now on, my life would set sail again. Terry hugged me in a gentlemanly manner. "Fiona, you're free." I smiled. It was the first sincere smile I had shown during this gloomy period. After leaving the court, I went to the cemetery to burn paper for my father. A familiar figure had been following me all along. Since the moment I got the divorce judgment, the light in Zachary's eyes had disappeared. Like a puppy abandoned by its owner, he looked extremely humble. I didn't want to pay attention to him. I squatted down and touched the black and white photo of the old man. I told him about my recent situation intermittently. "Dad, I've successfully got divorced. I also got the custody of the child. Do you think I've made a big gain?" The Zachary family didn't succeed in fighting for the custody, and they still have to pay 100 million yuan in child support every year. By the way, I'm going to join a film crew to start filming next month. Everything is going smoothly for me in my career and life. You can rest assured. As I was talking, tears fell again. As the saying goes, the death of a loved one makes one feel sad for a lifetime. The snow in the first lunar month was slowly melting. The long-absent sunlight shone on me, making me feel warm. I stood up and walked out. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw that a few meters away, Zachary was kneeling on the ground and kowtowing heavily in the direction of my father's tombstone. He was making up for the regret of not being able to enter the mourning hall to pay his respects on the day of the burial. His skin scraped against the hard stone-paved road, and bright red blood oozed from his temple. When we passed by each other, suddenly, he grabbed my wrist, his voice trembling. "Don't get divorced. The child needs a father." It seemed like he was saying meaningless nonsense. The judgment had already been made. We both knew clearly that everything had been settled and there was no turning back. I slowly pulled my hand out of his palm. "It's not necessary. I can raise the child without the father." Zachary stared at me blankly on the spot. I didn't look back and left straight away. 3 months later, the new movie of my postpartum comeback was completed. In the crowd, a young girl held up a microphone and asked me, "Sister Fiona, it's been really not easy all the way. Besides the discerning director, is there anyone else you especially want to thank?" I thought about my words for a moment. There are indeed 2 people. The first one is my father. The second one is my divorce lawyer. Without my father, there wouldn't be a Fiona who could pursue her dreams without distractions. Without Terry, there wouldn't be a Fiona who has broken free from the shackles and gained a new life now. The young girl nodded slightly. "We're also very happy. The fan club has prepared gifts overnight. Sister Fiona, I wish you a happy divorce." As soon as she finished speaking, suddenly, a video started playing on the big screen behind me. It was a collection of all the roles I had played in the years since I debuted. I was on the verge of crying. However, I didn't expect that the fans left the last scene for my father. In the picture, he was sitting in the audience, waving a light stick and shouting with great pride, "Hey, look, that's my daughter on the stage, the best actress." In just a few months, things had changed while people remained the same. I turned around to wipe my tears, but accidentally, I caught a glimpse of the corner in the last row where no one paid attention. Terry was sitting there, looking at me quietly. There was an empty seat beside him. I knew that it was reserved for my father. The old man also came to see me, wishing me to escape from hardships from now on.